This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
Pressure mounts on Tunisia to respect the constitution after President Kais Saied ousted the government and suspended parliament. Tanzania launches COVID-19 vaccination drive as President Samia Suluhu Hassan takes measures to stop the spread of the virus. And in Zimbabwe, a toll-free call center is helping people with HIV to access treatment during COVID-19 lockdowns. Hello and welcome to Africa Live. As always, great to have you with us. I'm Richard Nta, live in Nairobi. And for those of you joining us from across the continent and around the globe, we thank you for joining us. And tonight, I'm alongside my colleague, Uche, who has our business headlines. Uche?
Thank you, Richard. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. The rising cost of fuel puts a strain on Nigeria's aviation sector. And Tunisia calls for coordinated plans to boost economic recovery. Of course, all that coming up within the program. For now, back to you, Richard.
Thank you so much, Uche. Once again, welcome to Africa Live. So good to have you along with me for this hour. We begin with the unfolding political situation in Tunisia. The African Union has joined the EU and UN in calling for dialogue and calm. Their concerns come after the Tunisian President Kais Saied on Sunday dismissed Prime Minister Hichem Mechechi and dissolved the government. The country's largest political party, Nta, denounced the moves as unconstitutional. Meanwhile, the president has issued decrees terminating the duties of a number of government officials. Here's Adnan Shawashi with the details.
President Kais Saied signed decrees terminating the duties of some officials and senior advisors at the Prime Ministry. The decrees were published in the official Gazette of Tunisia on Tuesday evening. The head of state signed a decree ordering the termination of the mission of the State Prosecutor General, who's also the Director of Military Justice. The European Union's Foreign Affairs Chief, Josep Borrell, said that Tunisia's democratic foundations, respect of the rule of law, the constitution and the legislative framework must be preserved, while remaining attuned to the wishes and aspirations of the Tunisian people. The African Union Commission called for the rejection of all forms of violence and the promotion of political dialogue to resolve the problems in the North African country. Meanwhile, the UN has called for dialogue and calm and a return to normalcy. The Tunisian president stressed at a meeting with leaders of national organizations his concern to respect rights and freedoms. Kais Saied said he will announce the formation of a new government in the coming days. However, the executive office of the Nta movement called the president's exceptional measures as unconstitutional. The largest political party in Tunisia called for national dialogue to put an end to this unprecedented political crisis. Tunisia's national organizations and trade unions have announced their support for the demands of the people expressed during their peaceful movements after the failure of the former government to find solutions to the health, economic, social and political crisis. Adnan Shawashi, CGTN, Tunis.
And Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan has received her COVID-19 jab as the country launched its national vaccination campaign. At the launch, President Hassan urged her fellow citizens to get the vaccine to protect themselves from the virus. CGTN's Daniel Kijo has more.
Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan has taken the COVID-19 vaccine. She and other high-profile government officials got vaccinated at the highly anticipated launch of Tanzania's vaccine rollout. Tanzania received 1,058,400 doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine on Saturday through the COVAX initiative. In a bid to get more doses, the government met with the Africa CDC bosses yesterday to get more doses from the African Union for its 60 million citizens.
Kwa hiyo jana nasi tumeweza kuweka oda yetu. Yesterday, we put in our order. We will see how things go and we shall make a plan on how to receive the vaccines. Let me assure you, my fellow Tanzanians, that we will make sure vaccine doses are available for those who want to get vaccinated voluntarily.
This rollout launch sees Tanzania join the global community in the inoculation exercise. Burundi and Eritrea are now the only countries on the continent that are yet to launch a vaccination campaign. With this launch, Tanzania is looking to vaccinate at least 11 million people in the coming months. The government says that along with the 1 million doses of the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, it is planning to import 5 other vaccines from other sources. At the launch of the campaign, Health Minister Dorothy Gwajima vowed to roll out a public education campaign to counter vaccine misinformation. Earlier this year, she had publicly dismissed COVID-19 vaccines, instead promoting natural remedies. Now, she says that those who claim former President John Magufuli was against vaccines had misquoted him.
What he said was the Minister of Health should not just rush to bring in vaccines without researching them and satisfying itself. Then all the expert editors out there decided to change his quote from the speech and decided to mislead people.
President Hassan is also urging the media to educate the public of the importance of receiving the vaccine. Daniel Kijo, CGTN, Dar es Salaam.
Uganda's health ministry has allowed private organizations to access COVID-19 vaccines for their workers at a fee. This follows a growing demand for the jabs among the population. CGTN's Hilary Ayasega reports.
Private organizations who want to vaccinate their staff can now access the vaccines from government medical stores. The government hopes this move will help fast-track the delivery of vaccines among the population.
Government of Uganda's strategy is mass vaccination of the eligible population of 22 million people, representing 49.8%, as a means of optimal control of the pandemic and full opening up of the economy.
The government says it is evaluating more private companies that have requested to do vaccination.
Government is critically studying and assessing the private sector companies that have expressed interest on their capacity to handle and dispense vaccines and the cold chain.
The government is also planning to allocate health workers to help the companies carry out the vaccination. So far, more than 1 million people in Uganda have received the first dose of the vaccine. Previously, the vaccination program has been slow due to the global shortage of vaccines and hoarding by richer nations. But the government says additional 285,000 doses of AstraZeneca are expected into the country at the end of this week from the WHO COVAX facility. The country's health workers are now hoping to inoculate a bigger percentage of the population with the help of private organizations. Hilary Ayasega, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
The more contagious Delta variant has been detected in 124 territories worldwide, including more than 20 African countries. To get a better understanding of the progress of inoculation on the African continent in light of the Delta variant, we spoke to Dr. Ann Fortin, the WHO Regional Office Incident Manager for COVID-19 in Africa. Let's take a look.
First of all, we probably overestimated the production from manufacturer. We were thinking that they could produce much more than in reality they did. Second of all, with the third wave that happened in India, one of our major manufacturers is based in India, and the country really needed those vaccines for its population. So they had to slow down on the production and on the supply for other countries. And third of all, we saw the wealthy country, of course, which expressed a nationalism really and sort of blocked the vaccine at their country level, which meant that they were not available for other countries. But we expect a much better situation in the next month until December. We're hoping to have 520 million doses for Africa. What WHO has set as target is to have 10% of the population vaccinated by end of September and 30% of the population vaccinated by end of December, which means that we need about a little more than 700 million doses by end of December. All variant, the variant of concern, there are 4 of them. So we call them alpha, beta, gamma, and delta. All of them are more transmissible. We don't know if they are more severe. We know that for some people get more hospitalized, but probably it's because since it's more transmissible, there's more people, so people get more hospitalized. We need more study about that. Specifically for the Delta variant, it is the most transmissible of the 4. It's at about 50%, we say 55% more than the Alpha variant, which is the first one that was described, really. So what needs to be said to the population, though, is that Delta, all vaccines are effective against all variants, so including the Delta variant. And despite there's a lot of unknown, what we know is that hand washing, wearing masks, keeping distance, and being in a ventilated area and outside is better than inside. This works really for all variants, for Delta, for what we know of the virus now.
In Zimbabwe, a toll-free call center is helping people with HIV to access psychological support and treatment during COVID-19 lockdowns where their movements have been curtailed. And Farai Mwakatuya reports.
24-year-old T, the initial of her first name, was born HIV positive and has had to overcome many challenges like stigmatization and bouts of depression because of her condition. Since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic, she's had to deal with even more problems.
They introduced that you have to have a restriction letter, which indicates where you're going. So my review date came, and I was supposed to go to my review. Then the roadblocks were all over, but I managed to pass 3 roadblocks. When I was in town, there was this lady officer who said, this letter of yours doesn't mean anything. You just have to step off the bus. Then the bus left without me. So I had to get my pills. It was a forced disclosure in front of everyone. So I had to take my pills off, show her, take my ID, and show her that the name on the pill is the same on my ID.
There have been other difficulties for her and others.
Many young people, and not just those living with HIV, have faced challenges accessing contraceptives, which has led to a surge in unwanted pregnancies and sexually transmitted infections.
A call center has been set up by the network of people living with HIV and UNAIDS, offering information on access to antiretroviral medication and family planning services during COVID-19 lockdowns, while also offering support for other issues.
I was used in selling for me to get an earning. So I used to sell, come in town, deliver things, sell wigs, do people's hair. So when COVID came, I couldn't have anything to give me money. It was a very big trauma, so I had to call the center for help, for counseling.
The telephone conversations have been a crucial lifeline for many.
I will give an example of Harare. On daily basis, you get about 50, 60 calls that will require different services. Some to do with just basic access to services. Some will require just the psychological and mental health support. Some talk about livelihoods, treatment and care.
Kutabila platform is engaging community health centers to spread the word and enlisting beneficiaries like T to offer their positive experiences so more young people living with HIV can be reached. Farai Mwakatuya, CGTN, Harare, Zimbabwe.
The spokesperson of the Chinese mission to the EU says China has always been and will continue to be cooperative in international origin tracing studies. He has condemned some countries for politicizing the project. He was responding to a joint statement by the officials from the EU, the US, Australia, Japan, and other countries about the WHO's proposal for a second phase of investigation into the origins of COVID-19. Earlier, nearly 60 countries sent letters to the WHO agreeing with the results of the first phase of origin tracing research and opposing the attempt to politicize the study. Well, it's been over a year since the first COVID-19 outbreak, and the origin of the virus remains a hot topic. Dmitrov Lov, a Russian virologist and WHO expert, shared his studies and thoughts on the topic in an interview. CGTN's Chao Chu Feng has this report. Let's take a look.
Ever since the onset of COVID-19, there have been rumors circulating saying the virus was man-made, with some suggesting it was leaked from the Wuhan Institute of Virology in China. In a recent interview, virologist Dmitry Lvov has dismissed such claims, saying claims the virus is man-made are politically motivated.
I have no doubt this virus was a cause of nature. There were also rumors in Russia saying the coronavirus was man-made, but it's not academics or professionals who have been making these kinds of statements. These statements were made by politicians. Just like our President Vladimir Putin said, politicians have suddenly become virologists.
Lvov believes all viruses affecting humans originally came from animals.
I've been researching viruses all my life, and I firmly believe all viruses affecting humans come from animals.
And although China was the first country to declare it had detected a novel coronavirus, Lvov says it doesn't mean the virus originated in China.
I'm a scientist. I won't listen to hearsay. I only deal with facts. What I know is this: the virus's antibodies were reported in many parts of the world prior to the first outbreak.
He also says experts in the field all respect one another's opinions. They can have discussions and debates, but talks should be scientific in nature, not political. He says he has seen too much political intervention in this pandemic. Plus, Lvov says he's even felt pressure while working for the WHO.
Personally, I cannot answer for the WHO's actions and statements. People working inside the WHO also have their own differing opinions. But we felt a lot of pressure, especially from the US. They tried to prevent our virologists from telling the truth about the pandemic. We know a lot more than they do.
The WHO expert said he was very glad to see China's achievements in tackling the epidemic, especially in building new advanced virus research institutes. He believes such institutes will ensure rapid and effective analysis of the virus. Chao Chu Feng, CGTN.
You're watching Africa Live. We'll see you on the other side of the break with more news stories. Here's what's ahead. Cote d'Ivoire President Alassane Ouattara meets with longtime rival Laurent Gbagbo. And a Nigerian mother shares her daughter's ordeal in the hands of kidnappers.
Africa is a continent of diversity, with varied climates and enchanting geography, and a people so distinct, but with a shared enduring spirit. We are at the heart of the continent to bring you the untold stories.
Let's have a look.
We celebrate Africa as it shapes its own destiny.
Tunis, Cairo,
Juba,
Johannesburg, Ethiopia,
Tanzania.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
No war, no one again began holding guns.
Machine guns from police forces toward the protesters.
Were you worried about your life at that particular time?
Not at all.
The Excellency, thank you very much for your time. What is your assessment of the state of the continent today?
Africa has the potential to power itself.
Excuse me.
Welcome back to Africa Live. Thanks for staying with us. In Cameroon, unidentified attackers have killed at least 5 soldiers and 1 civilian during a raid on military outposts in the far north of the country. The Tuesday attack that occurred in the village of Zimbabwe and is the second deadly one in the area. It follows another attack on Saturday in which 8 soldiers were killed and Islamic State claimed responsibility. Cameroon, along with neighboring Nigeria and Chad, have been battling the Boko Haram militant group for years. But recently, security agencies have clashed with fighters who identify themselves as Islamic State West African Province, or ISWAP. And in Cote d'Ivoire, President Alassane Ouattara and longtime rival Laurent Gbagbo have held their first meeting in more than a decade. The meeting between the president and his predecessor is part of efforts to ease political tensions in the West African country. Cote d'Ivoire plunged into a bitter civil war over 10 years ago, a war that saw over 3,000 deaths and massive displacement. The conflict followed Gbagbo's refusal to concede defeat after losing the 2010 general elections. The former Ivorian leader returned from exile in June this year after the International Criminal Court dropped charges against him. Ouattara and Gbagbo have vowed to push for peace and reconciliation.
I think that it is important for everyone to understand that we decided that it is important to re-establish trust and to make sure that all Ivorians reconcile and trust each other. These events were painful, there were too many deaths, and this should be behind us, and we should now work towards the future on cohesion and reconciliation.
I am hoping that from time to time we can have more meetings such as this, in which we will clear the air in the country. As far as I'm concerned, I insisted with the president on the subject of the prisoners who were arrested at the time of the crisis of 2010-2011 who are still in prison. I told the president I was their leader and I'm not today. And they're in prison, and I would like for the president to do what he can do to liberate them.
The president of the Democratic Republic of Congo has launched the construction of a power substation in the capital Kinshasa to increase access to electricity for city residents. The construction of the station is being funded by the Chinese government as part of its mission to boost trade and development with the Central African nation. CGTN's Chris Ojumaringa has that report from Kinshasa.
Deepening economic ties. China and the DRC have officially launched the construction of a 220 kilovolt electricity substation in the capital, Kinshasa. The Kinsuka station will be the first automated distribution network in the DRC.
This is the first big energy project that we are jointly carrying out with the DRC government. It's in line with the DRC's vision of improving access to electricity this year. It's a complete step we've both made in developing the country's infrastructure.
The construction of the $200 million project is being done by China's Shanghai Electric Company. According to the World Bank, the DRC has one of the lowest electrification rates in Africa due to its high poverty rates and untapped hydropower potential. The electrical substation under construction over there is one of the latest Chinese-funded projects in the DRC. It's expected to provide electricity to more than 2 million Kinshasa residents when it's completed next year. Congolese authorities have hailed China for partnering with them to increase the supply of electricity in the city.
Kinshasa has become a mega city because the population is growing rapidly. It has exceeded 3 million inhabitants in 20 years. We now have a population of 15 million people. Our energy needs have also increased. We thank the Chinese for supporting us in this initiative.
The DRC is China's 5th largest trade destination in Africa because of its vast mineral resources. Their cooperation is rooted in China's Belt and Road Initiative, which seeks to build infrastructure, including roads, railways, and power plants, to boost trade between China and the rest of the world. Chris Sochamringa, CGTN, Kinshasa, Democratic Republic of Congo.
With the help of local airlines, South Africans have lent a helping hand by sending food supplies to those affected after days of unrest and violent looting. KwaZulu-Natal was the hardest hit province where retail stores were ransacked and set alight. The main roads to the province were also cut off following the unrest, making it harder to transport food. CGTN's Julie Shire reports.
Private airline Semair joined the call to fly much-needed aid to KwaZulu-Natal. The province was completely cut off by road after days of violent unrest and looting.
We took about 4 tons a time on our flights that were going into both Margate and to Durban. We had low passenger volumes and supply coming down to Durban, obviously people not wanting to get in, but so we used that to effectively take space and put the relief efforts into the aeroplanes and get it down to Durban and to get it down to Margate.
Residents in areas where shops were completely destroyed were left desperate without the supply of basic goods.
Large number of requests for medicine, so emergency supplies, chronic medications such as insulin. More than that, it was babies' nappies and baby formula, and then fresh supplies, so bread, simple staple dietary items. Bread, cooking oil, and some tinned products. People were panicking, not sure when would supplies return.
Passenger airline Flysafair also changed its operations as relief efforts grew across the country.
We ran a specific program where we allowed some of our customers to take goods with them free of charge. So that was moved through the airport terminal as effectively checked luggage, but the folks were allowed an extra piece. So that was half a ton per flight that we operated.
Shortages of products in other parts of the country also started to appear. Durban houses the biggest port in South Africa, but goods could not be moved along the main corridor between Durban and Johannesburg.
Yeast for bread baking that is produced in the KZN region, and there was due to be a bit of a shortage up in Gauteng as a result of the fact that the roads were severed effectively. So that was one of the more kind of commercial operations. We gave a favourable rate to the producers of yeast, who then flew that up to Joburg.
Life is slowly returning to normal in KwaZulu-Natal. Shops are restocking and more people are venturing out of their homes. But in many areas where stores have been destroyed, people are travelling long distances to get basic supplies. Julie Shire, CGTN.
And now on to Nigeria, where the mother of a 14-year-old girl who was recently released after being kidnapped from a school in Kaduna State has shared her daughter's ordeal. CGTN's Joy Karuki Juma reports.
14-year-old Precious Joseph is lucky to be alive. She is struggling, though, to recover after 21 days in the hands of her abductors. Heavily armed gunmen kidnapped her along with other students from her school in northwest Nigeria.
Yesterday, to walk is a problem. To talk is a problem. If she's happened to sit down, she just fearing. She's remembering those guns that they used to shoot in that bush to fear them. Up to now, she has not that fear.
The gunmen stormed Bethel Baptist High School in Kaduna State on the night of July 5th and kidnapped 121 students from their dormitories.
When I heard that she was being abducted, I thought maybe she will not be back. I lose hope. To pray, he had me to pray. If I pray, I'll stop the prayer for her. Even a group of people came to pray, I've been pursuing them, that they're just wasting their time. See, almost 2 weeks plus now. Where is the God that we are serving?
Precious is among 27 students who were released on Saturday. A school official said ransom was paid to secure the release, but declined to reveal how much. 5 other students had managed to escape, and one was released on health grounds. 80 other students are still being held.
She said when she was in the bush, they look at her. She's always thinking about her mother because she no get father. She cannot have mine. Then the kidnappers asked her, did you have parents? She said, my father is dead. It's only my mother. they keep them aside. Then they start selecting other people where they are orphan. They join them and the small one that they should come.
Precious is currently receiving treatment at Wilberson Hospital in Kaduna State. Her mother, who does manual jobs, however, says it will be a struggle to pay the hospital bill.
That they are sleeping outside with this rainy season and everything, so they are exposed to mosquito bites and everything. All the things that can cause malaria and typhoid and whatever are there. So, but thank God we've done tests on them so far. None of them has cholera, but they have typhoid and they have malaria, and they are under treatment for those things now.
Esther Joseph is now urging the government to help free the other students. Gunmen have recently turned to kidnapping school children. Since December, around 1,000 students and pupils have been abducted across Nigeria. Joy Kiruki Juma, CGTN.
All right, let's turn our attention to the United States, where the first hearing into the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol has been held. The U.S. House Committee is leading the investigations. 4 police officers told lawmakers they were beaten and taunted with racial insults. The officers called the rioters terrorists, and they were engaged in what they called an attempted coup. Nathan King has more from outside the U.S. Congress.
It was a powerful and emotional few hours of testimony. You know, there have been lots of political arguments about exactly what happened here on January the 6th in the months that have followed. But this really took us back to the day, the violence, the confusion, and the sheer horror about what could have unfolded had not these brave officers intervened. One talked of 4 tours in Iraq and never facing anything like this. Another talked of being called the N-word. The African-American officer said he never heard that leveled at him in his years of uniform. And then there is this officer who basically feared for his life, was beaten unconscious by the mob. He was electrocuted with his own taser, and they tried to steal his gun and shoot him.
I was grabbed, beaten, tased, all while being called a traitor to my country. I was at risk of being stripped of and killed with my own firearm, as I heard chants of kill him with his own gun. I could still hear those words in my head today.
Now, many of the members of Congress sat silently, not known to do so during the hearings, but the testimony was just so powerful. For a moment, you could feel the political divisions ebb away as we're listening to this heart-wrenching and tearful testimony at times. And one congresswoman who fled political violence in Vietnam said this was really a testimony to how much that the U.S. democracy was under threat on January 6th.
You know, January 6th was an attack on our democracy. It was an attack on the peaceful transfer of power, and it was an attack on this Capitol building. But it was also an attack on real people.
One officer said that if you were going to prosecute a hitman, you would also prosecute the people who hired him. Perhaps a reference there to Donald Trump. What will happen in these hearings? Well, we don't know. There will be subpoenas, witnesses will be called. They haven't ruled out the former president, but the bipartisan wrangling really has marred this select committee from the start. As you know, it was meant to be a commission. It was meant to be bipartisan. It didn't pass the Senate. The members put up for this committee in the House were rejected by the Democrat. There are 2 Republicans on it. Liz Cheney, the most famous, the daughter of the former Vice President Dick Cheney, and she broke with her party, lost her leadership positions because she says the Constitution is more important than party.
Although such a commission was opposed by my own leadership in the House, it overwhelmingly passed with the support of 35 Republican members. It was defeated by Republicans in the Senate, and that leaves us where we are today. We cannot leave the violence of January 6th and its causes uninvestigated.
So will this be a moment for Americans to reflect on the fragility of their democracy and also the fact that what happened here on January 6th didn't just reverberate across America but the world as well? Will lessons be learned? We'll have to wait and see in this very divided Washington. Nathan King, CGTN, just outside the U.S. Congress.
The news continues on Africa Live. Time now for our business segment with Uche. Uche.
Thanks, Richard. And coming up on Africa Live Biz. The rising cost of fuel puts a strain on Nigeria's aviation sector. And Tunisia calls for coordinated plans to boost economic recovery.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice. Africa Live. Find your voice.
Well, let's start off in Nigeria, where the rising cost of aviation fuel in the country is now putting a strain on the sector. With an average 50% surge in fuel prices, cost of airfares have nearly doubled. Here's CGTN's Kelechi Emekalam reporting.
These are not the best of times for passengers here at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, with the soaring cost of airfares fueled by a surge in the cost of aviation fuel, also called Jet A1. Passengers lament their ordeal.
I'm flying to Lagos. Today I paid 57,000 naira for a Dana flight to Lagos. But then it was not like that before. 3-4 months ago, it cost less than 40,000 naira.
Flight cancellations too have become rampant.
The fare for yesterday that I booked was 378,850, and then today now they are telling me 680,000 naira, and I don't have such money to book a flight ticket that I have already booked and it was cancelled.
In 2016, the Jet A1 was sold at 110 naira per litre. Recently, the price rose to between 250 and 300 naira per litre in the south and north, respectively. Several factors, including inflationary pressures, exchange rates, logistic challenges of importing and distributing the products, are responsible for the price hike.
In the last 5 years, the foreign exchange rate has almost doubled, from about 250 naira to now over 400 naira at official window.
Airlines spend up to 40% of their operating cost on aviation fuel. Despite being the world's 6th largest oil producer, Nigeria is still unable to refine the product locally, making it susceptible to external forces.
What we can do, number one, is to give them special rates. Secondly, is to give them low interest bearing loans.
Nigeria's aviation industry lost nearly $500 million in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The sector has been grappling to survive the many other challenges bedeviling it. Industry players say this could have dire consequences and pose a threat to the growth of the sector if not promptly addressed. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Meanwhile, Tunisia's central bank has called for greater coordination by the government to improve fiscal reforms and also help kickstart its economic recovery. Now, this follows the recent adoption of the economic recovery law in order to help fight the effects of COVID-19. Here's CGTN's Anan Ashaushi reporting.
The Central Bank of Tunisia has rejected the government's exceptional measures to revive the economy after the COVID-19 crisis. The governor of the Apex Bank said the banking sector has supported companies and individuals during the pandemic and stated additional plans should be discussed with its experts and involve all economic actors.
The central bank has made a proposal to the Finance Committee on Economic Recovery. The past period was very difficult. Tunisian banks and financial institutions offered a total of some $1.8 billion in loan deferrals. The central bank's refinancing helped more than 20,000 companies. However, these firms will face difficulties by the end of this year and therefore require a common vision.
Following the adoption by Parliament of the new economic recovery law mid this month, The government will seek to reduce cash payments by adding a 5% charge, thereby supporting a move by banks to increase card transactions and online purchases.
The problem with this law is that we are facing a deep economic crisis and many economic actors need cash. Our vision for this period is that we cannot withdraw the 50 and 20 dinar banknotes, yet the central bank is working on the decashing and digital payment project.
The new law allows Tunisian nationals to open foreign currency accounts for the first time and also permits companies and individuals to agree to financial settlement for foreign exchange violations.
Reforming the financial system is necessary in order to boost the economy in Tunisia. The reform project must be structural in order to solve the problems of economic actors who are facing difficulties to stimulate growth.
The board of directors of the Tunis-based central bank noted that Tunisian authorities aim to reduce taxes for real estate investors and allow companies to settle foreign exchange violations by paying the fees due plus an interest rate of 10%.
Experts assert that the economic recovery law includes measures which could hamper the proper conduct of monetary policy and affect the international commitments of Tunisia and its ability to continue to mobilize external funds. Adnan Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Now, it's not all doom and gloom for some of Zimbabwe's business startups in this COVID-19 times. A local small-scale free-range chicken farmer is maximizing on returns through the use of digital marketing platforms for his business. And the more individuals who choose to eat cleaner and healthier foods, the more clientele his business model hopes to grab. Here's Beryl Oro with a story.
Free-range chicken farming has been a growing enterprise among Zimbabweans in the past years. Favored for their organic meat and eggs, the chicken charmed the attention of 29-year-old Ian, who traded his degree for a career in farming on the outskirts of the capital.
I noted that free-range chicken had a gap. It's a project which we know, like when it started to give us results, it's quite well profitable because it's something which is new in the nation. The market is big because people are health conscious. There are plenty of restaurants in Harare which, if you look at the meals for free range, they are quite expensive.
He accredits the business boom to the dietary preference of the locals. Besides the cost of additional feed, cleaning and disease control measures, these free-range chickens require low-cost maintenance, which makes them more favorable compared to broilers.
Now at the current moment, we are now having 500 chickens ready to lay and 100 cocks ready for breeding. On above that, the excess cocks we are selling. We are having a laying percentage of about 80% on a daily basis. That means we are collecting an average of 400 eggs daily. 400 to 450 eggs out of the 500 roadrunner chickens. That's our yield on daily basis.
Ian has embraced digital marketing strategies to maximize on returns.
It's going digital. It's going digital. Yeah, we're using like our Facebook, our Twitter, our Instagram, and then obviously references, friends and family, because references, they move products faster than anything else.
Zimbabwe's growing poultry farming sector is recording growth, with farmers embracing multiple strategies to keep chicken on the local menu, even in the face of a threatening pandemic. Beryl Oro, CGTN.
And meanwhile, in the U.S., authorities are revising mask guidelines. They're asking fully vaccinated Americans to wear face coverings in indoor public places in regions where the coronavirus has spread rapidly. Here's CGTN's Owen Fairclough reporting.
How do you keep businesses open when hundreds of thousands of people are being asked to self-isolate at home because of a potential exposure to coronavirus? Well, that's the dilemma facing the British government and businesses like supermarkets. But now the government has decided to expand its testing so that people can take a daily COVID test rather than having to sit at home isolating. It's going to open 1,200 testing sites for people working in 24 sectors. including not only supermarket workers, police and fire brigade staff, but also people working in communications, defence, border control and prisons. But for the rest, self-isolation is still the requirement.
I know that people have been frustrated about the pinging and the self-isolation. I totally understand that, particularly now as we're starting to see some better figures. But I think everybody understands that this is still a very dangerous disease. We do need to use the tools that we have. Self-isolation is the one that we've got. I urge people to do it.
Meanwhile, the epidemiologist who did the modelling which sent the UK into its first lockdown, Professor Neil Ferguson from Imperial College, says that the UK could be looking back on the pandemic by October. He says that the R rate, the reproduction rate, appears to be under 1, which means that the epidemic isn't growing. Meanwhile, British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says that the country is not out of the woods yet.
I've noticed that obviously that we're 6 days into some better figures, but it is very, very important that we don't allow ourselves to run away with premature conclusions about this. The step 4 of the opening up only took place a few days ago. People have got to remain very cautious, and that remains the approach of the government.
Rates of infection have been falling in the UK over the last week, but scientists say that it could be due to school holidays and warm weather. Nicole Johnston, CGTN, London.
And a quick correction, that of course was Nicole Johnston in London telling us how the UK government is expanding its COVID testing amongst essential workers. Well, that's all we have for now on Africa Live Biz, but coming up on Global Business Africa, we'll be looking at Nigeria's decision to block the sale of $5.7 billion to money traders. Of course, all that coming up top of the hour. For now, back to you, Richard.
Thank you so much, Uche. Well, the news continues here on Africa Live. We're not done just yet. We've got your sports news coming up after the break. Here's